This is Russia's current reality. On the battlefield, the truth on the ground is far from the propaganda. Shattered convoys, tanks engulfed in flames, and exploding armored personnel carriers. Today, we've gathered the most striking moments from the front, from armored personnel carriers destroyed by pinpoint tank fire to convoys torn apart while trying to push through narrow passages. Let's begin. May 28, 2025. On the Pokrovsk front, two Russian armored vehicles crept dangerously close to Ukrainian trenches. The soldiers of the Pomsta Brigade were waiting. Their ambush was ready. From their hidden positions, an MLRS suddenly emerged, its barrels already aimed. The first salvo roared, lighting up the battlefield. Ukrainian artillery joined in moments later, unleashing a relentless storm of fire and steel. Shells rained down on the advancing armor, tearing through the earth, crushing their momentum, and leaving nothing but burning wreckage in their wake. Reconnaissance drones spotted a Russian 152mm MSTS howitzer hidden deep in the forest. It had to be destroyed with precision. The exact coordinates were relayed for a HIMARS strike. Moments later, the vehicle erupted into a massive fireball. The thick black smoke it unleashed rose high into the sky, shrouding the treetops in darkness. At dawn, Magyar birds teams spotted a group of Russian motorcycles approaching through the mist. It had been weeks since they'd seen such an attack, and the sudden sight of the fast-moving bikes caught them off guard for a moment. But their surprise didn't last long. All the drone operators were already in position, ready for just such a moment. They launched their drones without hesitation. Single bikes and sidecar pairs rolled forward in waves, trying to push through. The Ukrainian operators tightened their strikes with each pass, adjusting their aim, tracking every target. The humming of drones and the flicker of screens filled the room as operators never took their eyes off the monitors, knowing even one bike slipping through could leave the lines dangerously exposed. One by one, the motorcycles fell, their wrecks scattering across the field. Those that remained turned sharply and fled, leaving smoke and silence in their wake. For the Magyar birds, the field was quiet again, at least for now. A Russian BMP charged toward Azov positions at full speed, spitting fire from its guns. Then a drone struck it mid-run, and the noise stopped. Flames began to engulf the vehicle as it rolled to a halt at the nearest corner, its crews scrambling to abandon it. Nearby, another Russian BMP and an MTLB pushed forward, trying to break through the lines. But an armored vehicle from Azov's own unit was already on their tail. Its cannon roared, knocking out the lead vehicle with surgical precision. Ukrainian artillery joined in, hammering the ground around them. Then the chase continued, the second Russian armored vehicle now desperately fleeing under relentless fire. It didn't get far. Hit from both sides, it slowed, staggered, and finally succumbed to a series of lethal strikes, left a burning wreck. But the fight wasn't over yet. Another Russian convoy appeared on the horizon, determined to punch through Azov's defenses. Whether they truly had the skill or the courage to do so was another question entirely. The area was soon blanketed by Ukrainian artillery fire. The flames of the destroyed vehicles lit up the battlefield, visible from afar. In the end, only two Russian pickup trucks remained, but their drivers abandoned them and fled on foot, leaving the trucks behind in the dirt. It was just a matter of time before Ukrainian forces finished the job, this time with thermite to make sure nothing was left. A 17-vehicle Russian convoy sat in formation near the outskirts of Bakhmut, poised to punch through Ukrainian defensive lines. But Ukrainian forces had already seen their chance. As Russian crews scrambled to regroup, thinking the worst was over, the real blow came from the opposite flank. HIMARS rockets, launched from concealed positions behind the defensive lines, streaked in from the far side of the road, raining down with deadly accuracy. On the opposite end of the convoy, Ukrainian FPV drones began their work in earnest. They dove one after another into armored vehicles packed with ammunition, turning them into fountains of fire and shrapnel. Caught in a crossfire from above and from the flanks, the Russian soldiers never stood a chance. The formation dissolved into chaos as vehicles burned, smoke rose, and the convoy was reduced to a line of twisted, charred wrecks. By the end, only blackened shells of steel and scattered debris marked where the column had once stood. June 25th, 2025. Deep in the forest, in a classified stretch of the border, Ukrainian Special Operations Forces moved silently through the trees. Somewhere ahead, Russian soldiers were hiding. The Ukrainians struck without warning, opening a deadly crossfire that cut through the silence of the woods. Most of the Russians in the area were neutralized, but one was luckier than the others. They moved quickly, taking his radio before he could speak a word. They led the prisoner to a small dugout nearby and tended to his wounds. He sat quietly as they worked. Then, suddenly, his radio came alive. Russian voices crackled over the speaker, calm, unsuspecting. The enemy still had no idea their 5 men in the forest were already gone. May 30th, 2025, Bakhmut. On the edge of the battlefield, a Ukrainian soldier lay wounded and alone, stranded in the middle of a deadly crossfire. The area was far too dangerous for a regular rescue. That's when the K2 Battalion's ground rescue robots were sent in. But another challenge became clear. The soldier's arm and leg were badly wounded, making it almost impossible for him to climb onto the robot. Still, summoning all his strength and determination, he managed to pull himself aboard. The robot carried him steadily out of harm's way, delivering him to an armored vehicle waiting nearby. From there, he was rushed to the hospital. June 10th, 2025, Pokrovsk. Inside a stationary train car, a group of Russian soldiers thought they were safe. But above them, Ukrainian reconnaissance drones were already circling. The opening bombardment shook the car. After several hits, the Russians panicked and scrambled out. 6 of them. That's when the real hunt began. 4 of the soldiers stuck close together as they ran, making themselves the perfect target. A Ukrainian kamikaze drone darted in between them, exploding in their midst. 1 soldier was taken out instantly. The second soldier narrowly escaped the blast of the first drone and darted into a small shack nearby, thinking he was safe. He was wrong. Another drone slipped inside and finished him there. One by one, the remaining Russians fell. The third was caught in open ground, then the fourth, then the fifth, each tracked and eliminated with ruthless precision. But the 6th was smarter. By the time the drones found him, he had already thrown down his weapon and raised his hands in surrender. The drone operator flicked on the strobe lights mounted on the drone, signaling which direction to walk. When he reached a secure point, Ukrainian troops were waiting. They took him into custody, loaded him into a Humvee, and drove away. A 5-vehicle Russian armored convoy tried to slip through the gaps between old, abandoned villages, hoping to catch Ukrainian positions off guard. The first response came quickly, a strike on the lead personnel carrier. But the vehicle didn't stop. It kept pushing forward until a second hit finally forced it to a halt, and the soldiers on board scrambled out. The convoy split into 2 groups. One came under relentless drone strikes, while the other was pounded by artillery fire. It was an intelligent move by Ukrainian forces, dividing their firepower to overwhelm the enemy from multiple directions. By forcing the convoy to break apart, they ensured the vehicles lost cohesion and coordination. And once that happened, the Russian crews lost control completely, becoming easy targets one by one. Many of the armored vehicles burned where they stopped, reduced to flaming wrecks. One of the disoriented vehicles veered away, trying to escape the kill zone by hiding among the ruined village homes. The crew abandoned it and rushed inside a crumbling house, unaware they were still being watched. The Ukrainian operators made sure they wouldn't get another chance. The vehicle was finished off first. A bomb dropped from directly overhead by a drone left it a smoldering hulk. Then, the attention turned to the cornered soldiers. They still didn't realize how badly they'd miscalculated, huddled in the ruins, waiting for a miracle that wouldn't come. Finally, Ukrainian artillery took over. Guided by reconnaissance drones providing pinpoint coordinates, the buildings sheltering the Russian troops were methodically demolished one by one. When the smoke cleared, only burned-out vehicles and shattered walls were left behind, silent witnesses to another failed assault. A lone Russian soldier was spotted fleeing from a freshly demolished building, still billowing smoke after a Ukrainian artillery strike. He was lucky, very lucky, to have made it out alive. But Ukrainian drone operators weren't about to let him slip away. They sent a drone to finish what they'd started, targeting the shack where he'd taken cover. The drone detonated in a burst of flame, but somehow the soldier emerged unscathed. He tried his luck again, this time crawling beneath a fuel tanker to hide. But the operators were relentless. Another drone was sent, then another, and another still. It seemed the man had 9 lives, but with the final drone strike, the operators finally got what they came for. 2 Russian armored personnel carriers crept forward toward Azov Brigade positions. The first strike came from above. A drone slammed into the trailing vehicle, setting it ablaze. Then the lead vehicle was hit, grinding to a halt as its crew scrambled out. The trailing carrier, damaged but still moving. The lead vehicle burned where it sat, black smoke curling into the sky. The surviving carrier became easy prey for more Ukrainian drones. Then, with a roar, a Ukrainian tank arrived on the scene. Not content to leave the job unfinished, it opened fire, tearing the already wrecked carrier apart. But even before the final blows, Russian soldiers who had bailed out were still hiding, clinging to cover inside the nearby ruined house. One by one, the crumbling houses began to erupt into fireballs. Each blast sent debris into the air, reducing what little shelter remained to nothing but dust and flame. The day began fast for the anti-aircraft missile and artillery battalion of Ukraine's 3rd Assault Brigade. The Strela 10 air defense system was quickly deployed and brought online. Reports warned of an incoming Russian air attack. The Strela 10 locked onto its target and fired, sending a clear message to the Russian pilots above. Don't fly in my sky. But the skies didn't rest when night fell. Ukrainian airspace stayed active, closed to the enemy even in the dark. A man-portable air defense system, MANPADS, fired and brought down a Russian reconnaissance drone. Its wreckage was carefully collected and analyzed, with key parts sent to the Ministry of Defense for structural examination and intelligence purposes. To keep one step ahead, Ukrainian forces now rely on new generation radar systems to detect incoming drones.